for the Compliance Crusader, Compliance 1010, Dr. R.A. Mashelkar. This is the photograph of the evening and the year. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a special moment to Deepak Parekh giving the Compliance Crusader to Dr. Mashelkar. Thank you very much, sir. Sir.
To say that I'm overwhelmed will be an understatement. I accept this honor in all humility. I got awards in the past for being an innovation crusader, but never as a compliance crusader. And I think there is a special meaning to this, because compliance is a value. It came to me from my mother, this value. As you know, I was born in a very poor family. My widowed mother brought me to Mumbai when I was 6. She did menial work to bring me up. And every day she was in search of a job, teaching this, that, and the other. And I remember she had gone to Congress House in Prarthana Samaj to seek a job. She stood in the queue and she was denied a job. You know why? Because they asked her her educational qualification, and she was illiterate, and they said, we require minimum 3rd standard pass. She could have lied because there is no certificate for 3rd standard, but she did not lie. To me, that was compliance. And that is the value she passed on to me. So I dedicate this award to my mother, who taught me compliance at that age, under those circumstances. The second point I'd like to make is that, it feels rather strange being in the business community, because I belong to research and innovation. I started with research. Research, Deepak, is converting money into knowledge. Government gives us money, and we convert it into knowledge, write papers, and so on and so forth. That is how I began my career. But innovation converts knowledge into money. And when I got into National Chemical Laboratory, I think that is where we said, no, we must not just take government money and convert it into knowledge, but we must convert that knowledge into wealth and social good. And then, of course, CSR. I've had many gurus. I would like to acknowledge some of them. Some of them are sitting here. And one of them is Ashok Ganguly. I remember I was Unilever's consultant on reforming their entire engineering science process. And one day, Ashok Ganguly, I remember when I was selected as the Director General of CSIR, he told me, don't go there and warm up the chair as Secretary to Government of India, because I was also Secretary to Government of India. Be the CEO of CSIR Incorporated. And I remember my very first interview when I was appointed, I said that. And the meaning was very simple: doing research as a business, as a product, but also doing research in a business-like manner as a kind of a process. And that is where our document came up. And the corporate world was very ready and very willing to accept me, by the way. And I remember in 1998, my receiving the JRD Tata Corporate Leadership Award. And it's very interesting, by the way. That's why, Deepak, receiving this award at your hand is something special. When this award was established, the first award posthumously went to Aditya Birla, the second went to Deepak Bhai, and the third went to Narayan Murthy. And after that, it was me. And I find that as far as this award is concerned, I'm getting it this year. Last year you got it and Narayan Murthy the earlier year. So I think after 20 years, the history is repeating itself. I must also say that 2006 end, 31st December, I retired. And after that, there were a number of course, offers on being on the board. And I remember my first three. The first three were Tata Motors, Reliance, and Hindustan Unilever. And all of them were very special to me for different reasons. Tata Motors especially, because after 1960, although I had stood 11th among 135,000 students, I was going to stop education and help my mother. And it was that 60 rupees per month that Tata's gave me for 6 years. That is why I'm standing where I am. And it was interesting, the same Bombay house where I will go to collect that 60 rupees, I became a member of the board of Tata Motors, became the chairman of the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee, and have been there. You know, Tatas have this affirmative action program, governing council. I've been its chairman for the last 10 years. So I think there is some, you know, in mathematics we say coupled nonlinear equations of an unbelievable kind. I have gone through that. Deepak, I must also acknowledge something. You have been one of my great gurus, and I'll tell you, we were both on Hindustan Unilever board. You were the chairman of the audit committee, and I know nothing about finance, by the way, I must admit, sort of stayed away, but still for some reason I was on the audit committee. And Deepak, I saw you chairing that committee. It was a very formidable committee because it had C.K. Prahlad, it had S. Ramdurai, and I saw you in action. And I learned at your feet at that time, basically. So I want to acknowledge that was my first introduction to the boards, I would say. There are a couple of remarks I would like to make before I close. I mean, yes, I've been an independent director on a number of companies. And one of the issues that Harsh, you very eloquently talked about was corporate governance. I just wanted to tell you something about Pune International Center, which we established in Pune, because you remember in 1920s, if you look at thought leadership that the country had, Tilak, Agarkar, Ranade, etc., etc., we wanted to recreate that. And that's why we created a Vichar Manthan Kendra, Pune International Center. I happen to be its president, and Dr. Vijay Kelkar is the vice president. And we bring out policy research papers. And 6 years ago, we brought out a paper which was actually launched by Mr. Moily, who was then the Minister of Corporate Governance. So our idea is to debate, engage and influence. And I remember this being done by them. This is on our website. You might not have actually read it. But the reason I want to mention that is that in this paper, we have created what is called as a corporate governance index. Because, you know, what you can't measure, you can't improve. And of course, while measurement, you have to be very careful, because many times what counts doesn't get counted, and what is counted doesn't count. So you have to be careful. So there are 10 elements of that index, compliance being just one of them, as Harsh rightly said. The first is audit, second is board, third is compliance, fourth is innovation, the fifth is rewards and recognition, sixth is risk management, seventh is security, safety and protection, eighth is sustainability and social audit, ninth is stakeholder transparency, and 10th is stock market interaction. And we have created an index just for internal evaluation, by the way. So please do have a look at it, and if you find that it is worthwhile, it might be a good idea to sort of start with it. I must say, among all these 10, the only thing I have contributed in my board positions is innovation, because innovation used to be at the periphery. We tried to bring it to the center. Like I chair the Reliance Innovation Council, Thermax Innovation Council, Marico Innovation Foundation, although not in terms of the board, KPIT Technology Innovation Council, and so on and so forth. And I think that has to be brought to the center, as Harsh very rightly pointed out. The last point I would like to make, of course, is that there are responsibilities for independent directors. They should not just be watchdogs, but conscience keepers. Companies tend to have a short-term view in terms of creating short-term value. How do you create and maintain a long-term value? But as we move along, I see more problems. We have now a VUCA word, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That makes it very difficult. I think one of the challenges the country is facing, if you ask me, not so much the budget deficit, the trust deficit. We need to look at that. I want to say that we are worried about climate change from the environmental perspective. Harsh, Deepak, I feel there is a challenge about climate change in terms of the kind of environment that we have, the mistrust, the regulation. I was very sorry to see that I was looking at the data that Nifty 500 companies in 2018, 240 independent directors existed. But this year, 316, 33% increase. I think we need to dwell into the reasons as to why this is happening. I was talking to Deepak Bhai that World Economic Forum report has just come up, and you have seen that competitiveness index. We have fallen by 10 ranks. I think that needs to be worried. But for a bad news, there is always a good news. And it is interesting that among 141 countries, in corporate governance, we are 15th. And in terms of shareholder governance, you'll be very happy to know we are second. I think so. There is a basically good news. But we can't be complacent. We have to move forward. Legacies, I found there is a very nice motto that you have, looking beyond the reason. I mean, beyond the horizon. I'm one, as a dangerous optimist, I want to pole vault, not leapfrog. Frog leaps only a few feet. The pole vault is the size of your aspiration determines how far you can go. That's the book that one has written. And therefore, 10 out of 10 compliance is fine, but I like to have a special award for 11 out of 10. If somebody has gone beyond what the rule book said or what the governance book said, I personally believe, and that is on my website, as you can see, that there is no limit to human imagination. There is no limit to human endurance. There is no limit to human achievement, excepting the limits one put up here. So my dream is that of that limitless India, which will show the rest of the nation the path to follow. And we will lead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mashelkar, for those insightful words.